You over there in the Avril Lavigne hoodie. Pick a card, any card. Oh, a YouTube video about an obscure card-based GameCube RPG. Nice choice. Good thing you didn't pick that other one, though. So, games with deck building elements and card-based battle systems have started to really pick up steam and thrive in modern times. Games like Slay the Spire have refined the fun of a turn-based card battle system to a T and become huge hits. Or there's also games like Inscription, which took card-based gameplay to strange and surreal places to become an unexpected sensation. However, this really does feel like a modern trend because back in the day, these kinds of games were super few and far between. Unless you're counting like the 50 dozen Yu-Gi-Oh games that got made.
Cause I figure, if there is intelligent life out there, then let's teach them how to duel.
But there definitely were some standouts back in the day, like Lost Kingdoms or Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which I loved as a kid and is still the only Kingdom Hearts game I've played. At the time, I thought that was the reason I had no idea what was going on, but it turns out nobody could understand them. Get it? Nobody? Anyways, there was one card-based game that I think stands above the rest and has a super unique battle system that holds up extremely well to this day. It's got brain-blasting visuals, a phenomenal soundtrack, and has a story.
In this world, there are things that people mustn't touch. Who cares?
That game is Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings of the Lost Ocean. So yeah, this is a card RPG with a ton of unique elements. Even though it's got so many unique things going on, the battle system is actually really easy to grasp at first. You have attack cards, defense cards, status effect cards, and healing cards. You start out only being able to play 2 cards each turn and having 20 cards in your deck. However, as you level up, you can play more cards each turn and hold more cards in your deck. Baten Kaitos uses this to layer complexity at such a satisfying pace, where you learn more and more interesting ways to line up card combos and how to best build your deck around the 4 elements cards can have. It becomes this perfect blend of tense decision making and strategic deck building that gets elevated to a whole nother level when you start to get the hang of the number matching system. Every card you get has numbers on them, and when you play a combo, the game looks at these numbers to give you percent bonuses. It's basically like poker, you're trying to line up a straight or a matching pair. But the thing is, you only have a short amount of time to plan out your combo, because once you choose your first card, you only have until that animation finishes to choose the next card in your combo. The sour gummy worm on top of this battle system ice cream is that Baten Kaitos has some of the best battle themes ever. So many of these tracks are so unorthodox and compelling. I love when RPGs go for a more jazz, funk, or at least really complexly arranged style for their battle themes. These kinds of songs tend to have so much more replay value than some of the more bombastic sounding, straightforward, traditional battle tracks. Like, no matter how adrenaline pumping those may be on the first few listens, on the 500th time hearing them, they can get so grating. Baten Kaitos avoids all that by having these pristinely structured grooves and uses quite complex rock when it does want to up the intensity. These are just some endlessly replayable slappers that never get old right up until the final moments of the game. So many extremely polished elements come together to form the core of the addicting gameplay that I think makes Baten Kaitos one of the best turn-based RPG battle systems of all time. The game design philosophy behind this was so interesting too. The developers Monolith Soft and Tricrescendo looked at more standard RPGs and saw how often at the beginning of the game, when you're underpowered and have limited options to work with, you actually end up having to strategize more and make more interesting decisions. But more often than not, as the game goes goes on and you get much more obviously powerful options, you end up losing strategic complexity the further you get into the game because you're just spamming whatever you know is already best. With maybe the exception of some overpowered bosses with unique attributes or something like that. However, Baten Kaitos' battle system progresses in a way that guarantees that each time you get stronger options, the strategic complexity also increases to match that. I love this idea. I can't tell you how many RPG battle systems I've bounced off of after really enjoying the first half or so. So many just don't progress strategically and think that higher stat enemies are enough to sustain countless hours of gameplay without introducing higher levels of strategy to match. Especially because when you have those layers of strategy being added instead of just higher stats, it allows the player to avoid grinding if they can master the complexities of the battle system. Now, Baten Kaitos' battle system definitely does get complex, so I would recommend that you read all the tutorials that you come across because admittedly, this added complexity I enjoy so much does take some explaining for the more easy to miss elements. Like on my first playthrough, I didn't realize for way too long that I could use the C stick to select the alternate numbers on a card when playing it, and that's a pretty crucial feature that adds a lot of strategic depth. And also, it just feels really good to do this by flicking my C stick. That sounded wrong. Stupidly, I just skipped the tutorial for this one on my first playthrough because I just assumed I already knew enough about the battle system when I ran into this tutorial kid. Oh, and one other super fun thing I neglected for way too long on my first playthrough was the secret combos you can pull off with some of the seemingly useless cards, which then reward you with some really overpowered cards. It adds a fun layer of strategy where you have to have these junk cards in your deck for quite a while before finally the stars align and you can pull off an obscure combo to get stuff like the extremely overpowered cooked rice card. I swear it's more fun than it sounds, and goddamn, that rice is a really good healing item. That being said, that whole secret combo system is actually something you can totally ignore and be fine, but it's so much fun and adds a lot of depth. There's a lot of other little cherries on top of the card system like this that give Baten Kaitos even more cool game design points.
Great job.
For example, the healing items are all food, and after you've used the food cards in your deck for a long while, they'll eventually go rotten and then can be used to attack and inflict status effects. Some items like bananas can even start off green and need to be used as an attack item for a while before they ripen and then become a healing item. These time changes to cards aren't just for food though, and the mechanic leads to some really neat moments in deck building where a seemingly junk card can turn into something awesome. It's not something the devs needed to do at all, but God, I'm so glad they did, because it's really charming and ends up rewarding your awareness of your deck and how often you've used your cards. Yeah, unnecessary amounts of charm. That idea is so consistent throughout the entirety of Baten Kaitos, honestly. You see this so often in the world design. Every single area has so much detail and life to it. This has got to be one of my favorite art styles of any RPG ever, and they just went so far above and beyond in the execution. At a glance, it feels like Baten Kaitos' main inspiration would have been Chrono Cross, with its surreal and colorful, super detailed backgrounds. At the same time, it feels so wholly unique with its setting that takes place across a bunch of floating islands in the sky. Every one of the extremely varied cultures of the different islands you visit are so well thought out and brought to life in beautiful detail with what looks like hand-painted backgrounds. I think Baten Kaitos might be the single best example for the case of using pre-rendered backgrounds for RPGs. There's just so many stunning moments. You know what, Lakitu, just roll another montage for me. Baten Kaitos came out in an era where everyone was rushing to push the boundaries of 3D technology for their game worlds, but these devs looked at all that and said, nah, I'm good, I think I'll just paint some timeless masterpieces instead. I would love to see RPGs return to this style of fixed camera shots that allow for incredibly detailed backgrounds. What you give up in player freedom, you make up for so much in your ability to control the aesthetic you're presenting to the player. The camera will always be in the perfect spot, and you'll only need to render the background from one angle, allowing you to add so much more stylistic flourish with a refined clarity to the artistic intention. And now this decision to stick with 2D was an intentional design philosophy the devs were thinking about, not just a budget limitation or something. I mean, they proved they could pull off stunning 3D work in the battles. They really just knew the world they wanted to convey would work so much better with these extremely detailed 2D backgrounds, and because of that decision, I think the game has aged so well. What maybe didn't age quite as well is the story of Baten Kaitos.
What?
While it does have enough exciting character moments and plot beats, the framework surrounding that is pretty generic without all that much thematic depth. Like, it's a pretty standard save the world from ending by preventing an ancient evil from rising again type of story, where you try to defeat the evil imperialist empire that's trying to use that ancient evil as a weapon. There is some really intriguing and unexpected mystery surrounding the main character Callus, but overall the story doesn't really explore too many themes or plot directions you haven't seen before in a dozen other RPGs. Now, a story like this can totally still work in an RPG if it can nail the sense of adventure and have entertaining characters. And I gotta say, they nailed this with the nail gun. The world you explore never fails to stay surprising and engaging with its well-paced out variety, and the characters are charming and weird enough to keep things fresh. The sense of humor in Baten Kaitos often caught me off guard with these little strange but charming moments. The funniest bits are the little detailed side stories of these minor characters you can easily miss. Like when you're in Diadem, you can talk to this dude who spent an incredible amount of money on a portrait of his wife, hoping to fix their horrible relationship where she's always calling him a good-for-nothing. You can even find the sales receipt in the drawer and see that the painting cost like 10 million G. Then later, when you're chasing around this troublemaker kid, you can revisit that guy and see that the kid's painted a mustache on the painting. Funnily enough, you talk to the guy and he seems relieved, like it's helped him give up hope on the failing relationship or something. The visual gag of the painting being drawn on is a hilarious payoff, but this funny moment still manages to tell an actual story about a relationship too, which I thought was so interesting. Like, they took so much care for such minor characters just to make the world feel more fully realized. And all of this stuff I just described is 100% optional, and some pieces of the stories only come to fruition if you're revisiting areas at different times, which rewards a curious, explorative player, while not making a player who's rushing through feel like they're missing all that much in the main plot. It all feeds into that idea of an unnecessary amount of charm I mentioned before that makes this world so fun to explore. Okay, but does the main story have a bunch of these little unexpected details too? From time to time? Yeah, like at one point in the story, you'll find yourself flying into a dimensional rift on your space whale, and then you'll meet a little dimension demon who has you play a shmup for a while, and then you end up in a village made entirely out of candy in the space of like 1 hour? No, but for real, it's not just wacky stuff like that. The story can be really engaging once you're like halfway through and all this mystery and intrigue starts getting introduced and building on top of itself. The thing that surprised me most was all the unexpected twists of betrayal between the main cast that really keep you on your toes. The story's at its strongest when it has you starting to doubt every character in your party's intentions and whether they're on the Empire's side. And Baten Kaitos lets this feeling hang for quite a long time too, leading to a lot of tension permeating the plot beats, and I won't spoil any of the reveals and twists here, but trust me, these moments of doubt and betrayal elevate what feels like a rather generic feeling plot at first into something really fun and exciting. What also helps elevate Baten Kaitos' story into being an engaging adventure is the like million absurdly good songs helping set the tone. There is so much variety in this soundtrack too. I especially love the tracks that use harps so effectively for these calming and beautiful scenes that fit the angelic imagery of the game so well. I could harp on forever about this soundtrack, but the point is, these stunning pieces of music perfectly fit this breathtaking world so that Baten Kaitos ends up being an incredible audiovisual experience, even in the moments when the so bad it's hilarious dialogue is taking you out of the story.
Please, we must hurry. It's very important.
Yeah, you gotta love bad RPG dubs.
Thank you so much. I'll do my best.
And you gotta love Baten Kaitos. It's simply one of the best RPGs ever in my opinion, and there's no other game quite like it. Well, except a prequel that came out 3 years after the original called Baten Kaitos Origins. Maybe I'll cover that in a later video, who knows. What I do know is that you should definitely try out Baten Kaitos for yourself any way you can, because you can talk to every single one of these little dudes and they always just say squeak. That must be experienced firsthand. No, but really, this is some of the best RPG gameplay you can find. And it's all wrapped around a slightly generic, but definitely fun and engaging adventure. Even if you don't care about any of that, you just gotta play this solely for the ridiculous amount of awe-inspiring visuals along the journey. Lakitu, you know what to do. Alright, that's all I've got to say about Baten Kaitos Eternal Wings of the Lost Ocean, a game that truly spread its wings and took flight into the skies of my heart. Okay, for real. Thanks for watching the video and supporting the channel. Let me know any games you might want to see covered in the comments, and one last thing. Pick a card, any card. Oh, that one? Oh my god, it's the subscribe button. What's that doing here? Alright, enough of my dumbass hogwash. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a good one.
Bonus stage!
There's actually a Baten Kaitos manga, and oh my god, she stole his pancakes!